Is up, y'all? Welcome back to episode 53 of That's No Moon Pod. Want to get into last week's episode of Loki. Um, Episode 2, I really liked. Episode 1, I really liked. And episode 3, I really liked as well. I think the show so far has been real consistent with it not being too slow, the pacing, uh, the humor, I don't think is over the top. Even though in this episode, there were a couple of things that I didn't like that kind of reminded me of some stuff from other Disney Plus shows. But uh, I like how we pretty much just jump right into it, where Loki and Mobius they got to go back into the 1800s because Renslayer and Miss Minutes were already back there, and prior to Loki and Mobius getting there, He Who Remains, Kang, Jonathan Majors, he was a little kid when Ramona and Miss Minutes went back, and from what Miss Minutes was telling Renslayer, this is all part of the plan. He set this up. Here's this package. Drop it in that kid's window, and then we hop forward a few years later to where he's probably early 20s at this point. Um, and that's pretty much how the whole episode starts off. You get that creepy vibe right away from Miss Minutes. You know she's up to no good, even though Tara's strong. Um, that's my girl, but the way she's able to just manipulate her voice and create these characters through these animation style with the whole, she's been doing voice acting for so long now, and she's been killing it. And it's cool that she kind of has like this not main character role, but she does have a huge part in this series, and she really gets to have a moment here towards the end of this episode. But I liked how they're doing the whole time thing in this show still. Um, Mobius and Loki going back, they're in Chicago in the 1800s. Just seeing Owen Wilson in this time instantly takes me back to Shanghai Nights. Um, Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights. I grew up watching those movies over and over again, and you could tell Owen Wilson's just having fun with this role. He's able to do whatever he wants pretty much while still being himself. Um, but it was just cool seeing Owen Wilson back in this kind of set where it's just old west or just old timey 1800s style, um, old America, and he fits right in. And I like how we get introduced with Kang in this one, He Who Remains. He's doing this whole presentation all these years after Miss Minutes and Renslayer dropped that TVA book in his window. That kind of set him on course to the path that he's on now, to where we eventually see him in these different timelines. Um, but just the way Jonathan Majors he plays the role in this particular episode, where he's not just some regular evil dude wanting to take over the world at this point. He's just some mad scientist guy who is real like eccentric and but also still has a motive. And I wouldn't say he's necessarily a particularly good guy, because right away his presentation, just the way he starts speaking and his mannerisms. He's At first I thought he might have been overcooking it a little bit, but as it was going on, I kind of saw what he was doing, trying to have that, Nikola Tesla or that just crazy mad scientist vibe to him, which I think that's what he was going for pretty much. And also during this time, uh, there were not a lot of people that probably spoke that well because the way Jonathan Majors played his character in this episode, he kind of has like not necessarily like a stutter, but just kind of a hesitant to when he says each word almost. Um, he's pump faking every other word, but during that time, I'm sure there was plenty of people that couldn't speak like you and I can. Just the flow of the language, depending on how well their education was back in the day. Sure, a lot of kids back then didn't go to school, whatever, or just weren't obviously taught right um, in English class. But I really liked his acting choices with it. It kind of reminded me of how Jamie Foxx would talk in Django Unchained, especially at the beginning, to where Django and Christoph Waltz's character, they kind of first meet up, and just the way Django's not exactly as a fluent speaker as Christoph Waltz is, and I thought Jonathan Majors kind of brought that element to this character in a way, and for me, it actually kind of made it more believable. And once he does his whole presentation with the whole electricity, wanting to power up the whole world, um, everyone's bidding on the machine that he created because of the TVA handbook that helped him out. Um, and he makes a sale. He says he doesn't do partners though, but he's willing to make a sale, even though he knows that that machine up there is just a prototype. But like I said, he seems real innocent in this episode, but at the same time, he's not a good guy because we know what he becomes later on. And there was a lot of just cool small moments in the show in this episode. Um, when Loki and Mobius are standing outside and they see those statues of Balder and Thor and Odin, and they kind of just have that nice little conversation. Mobius saying he forgets that he's one of them, and Loki saying Thor's not actually that tall. There's just a lot of cool little scenes like that in this show um, throughout the whole season so far. Um, and then once finally we get through the whole thing with Kang's presentation, and now we got a pretty much full on chase scene with him and these stereotypical Americans back then. Just the way they speak and look and act, they're all out of shape and old. And this was probably the only part of the show or the episode that kind of I wasn't fully on board. Was when Kang he's getting chased through the city or through the fair or whatever, and all these guys are after him, including Loki and Mobius. But the guys that he sold his machine to, they're obviously pissed because it don't work, and they just pay this dude $1,000. And the whole chase scene, there's just it kind of took me back to Kenobi, to where Leia is running through that forest, and Flea and all these henchmen are having the hardest time trying to catch a 6-year-old girl running away from them, um, or she kind of just hides in plain sight and they still don't see her somehow or just can't grab a hold of her. And this one, Kane, he's running and then he kind of hides behind a pillar and his whole broad shoulders are clearly sticking out and they just kind of run past him like they don't see him. And it was kind of with the music, um, it just kind of made that whole part like, come on, like you really couldn't see this guy. Um, but that was literally a split moment, right, in the show to where I was like, kind of took me out of it a little bit to where it was just kind of campy or Disney ish. But from that point on, once Sylvie comes in and she's trying to kill him because that's just what she wants to do in the show, I guess, even though still no one has told her this is all your fault. This is because of you. Like no one's calling out her wrongdoings. She's just trying to wipe everyone out like that. And it seems like every time there's a chance or a moment for someone to be like, hey, this is all on you, girl, she kind of either dips out or says something, and they just kind of brush all that off from last season. So maybe there's still time for someone to call her out on it and kind of just get her to understand, to chill out and relax because last time you were acting like this, look what happened. Um, so that's kind of a part where I'm still not understanding quite why no one's telling Sylvie any of this. They're just kind of letting her be mad at everyone. Um, but the whole scene when they're in the Ferris wheel was cool. Um, and then seeing He Who Remains and Renslayer and Miss Minutes back at his crib, and you could tell Renslayer and Kane they're kind of vibing a little bit, and she thinks he's cute, and I'm sure he thinks she's cute and whatnot, and they're kind of just having this cool little scene to kind of tell a little bit more of a story. Exactly, they let them know pretty much him from another timeline sent them back in time to deliver the TVA handbook to him as a kid. And they're kind of just going over this plan, and those dudes come back and try to break in his door, get back the money that they just gave this guy. And once they peace out, you kind of just get this weird love triangle tension between Miss Minutes and Renslayer and Kang. Um, but we all know Renslayer, Miss Minutes, they want to be with this guy, like by his side. But we all heard him say to those dudes that he sold the machine to that he don't do partners. And what does Renslayer say later on? We're on that boat. I'm excited for this partnership. And right there, you could just see it in his eyes. You're like, as soon as he lets go of her hand, it's a wrap. And then before you know it, they're dumping her off the boat, and she's got a paddle to wherever they're going. Um, so that whole moment was pretty cool. Again, that those guys, those that are after Kang though, and they couldn't break into his. That must have been the strongest wooden door in the 1800s back then. If they couldn't break that thing in, and of course they don't got no guys waiting outside for him just in case he hops out the window. But whatever, that's just some Disney stuff that they throw in every show. It seems like, so I'm not gonna get too bummed about that. Um, but this is pretty much where the craziness happens in the episode where they're at Kang's kind of warehouse or whatever, and he's got all his tools and mechanisms or whatever. And it's just him and Miss Minutes, and Miss Minutes is kind of telling him to chill out, let's relax here a little bit. You know, we have time. And then she just starts speaking in a type of way to where you're like, hold up, what is she doing here? she's obviously creeping him out, and if she's creeping him out, then she's definitely creeping us out. And before you know it, she's kind of laying the groundwork, and she starts getting into her being his girl and asking why he never tried to give her a body and whatnot. And then she puts her face on that mannequin, and it kind of just goes straight, craziness, evil AI. And he puts a wrap on that, closes her up, and then once Loki and Mobius and Renslayer pop back in, and then Sylvie too, we get this cool scene where they're all trying to fight for this guy, but one of them wants to work with them. Mobius and Loki trying to get him back to the TVA so they could use his whatever to help fix the timeline because they need his, I don't know if it's his fingerprints or his whatever, but they need him because he's the only one that can access that stuff with OB. And then Renslayer's pissed because she just got dumped off a boat, but she's still trying to get hers. And then here comes Sylvie again, wanting to just kill the guy, and still no one calling out on anything. And she has a chance. She had plenty of chances. That's what I'm saying. She just showing up pissed off, mad, saying she wants to kill him or kill everybody. But then eventually she kind of gets talked out of it, and then she leaves. And that's pretty much what happens here again. But this time it was cool because Sylvie sent Miss Minutes and Renslayer to the time where Sylvie kills He Who Remains, and he's just there chilling, all dead and rotten pretty much. But it was cool because we get this whole moment to where, okay, Loki and Mobius, they talk Sylvie out of it. They're taking Kang back to the TVA, which I'm wondering how exactly that's going to turn out. And you got Sylvie sending Miss Minutes and Renslayer to that time to where she killed Kang. And Miss Minutes starts speaking a little bit. She starts saying these words, saying something about someone getting angry, and then the episode cuts off. So leaves us on a pretty big cliffhanger on what exactly we can expect from tomorrow's episode on Thursday. But I thought they did a pretty good job with kind of just setting everything up. We're already going to be over halfway point of the show. So to leave us on that cliffhanger, it's probably going to jump right into it tomorrow. And I think we're going to have a pretty good finale to the show as well because just the way they're setting all these things up, I think they have a lot of confidence in this show. And there hasn't really been anything so far to make me think otherwise that they're going to, screw it all up in the end. But y'all let me know what y'all thought of the episode. I'm really digging it so far. Um, it's cool to have a show, another Marvel show to be excited about every week. Um, I might be talking about some more alien UFO stuff next week because this past week there was the David Grush, the famous whistleblower this past year that came out talking about non-human intelligence and these UAPs and all these crazy things that have been coming out in the UFO world this past year. But he recently had a skiff, which is pretty much just like a secret private meeting to where he's talking to these different senators and representatives and kind of giving them a lot more than what he can actually say on air or in public in an interview. And from what I've heard, he spilled the beans on a lot of crazy stuff. And I'm not exactly sure if and when we'll get any of that information, but Arrow, the uh, pretty much the government office dealing with UAPs and UFOs and all the reportings and sightings, they had a really crappy report come out, pretty much just the same old, this and that, to where it doesn't move the needle or it doesn't give more credence to people wanting to come out and give out their information or at least speak out in public without being scared of losing their job or reputation. But the more and more info that comes out, I'm gonna look into it this week, and I'll probably come back next week and kind of give you my overview of it. And you never know, by next week, some more craziness will probably come out. I'm sure of it. But until then, y'all, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on all my socials. I've been live streaming on Twitch, gaming Call of Duty, um, getting ready for the new one to come out. I still haven't bought that new Cyberpunk uh, DLC, but I get paid later this week, so I'm probably gonna have to cop that. I've been dying to play a new game. Uh, on Snapchat, follow me on Snapchat for sure. If you like comic books, I'm posting one on there damn near every day. I got probably almost 100 by now of full length with variant covers, new releases today on Wednesday. I'm gonna go check out the new drops that came out on Comixology, and I'll be posting one later today and for sure tomorrow as well. So if you're into comic books and you want to get into some, I got free ones, new releases on my Snapchat, literally, that you could go read for free. Um, all the links will be down below in the description. But until next week, y'all, hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's week. Y'all stay safe, and I'll catch y'all on the flip. Peace.